Washington's taking on Weber State. It's time for some keys to the game.
You are Locked On Huskies, your daily podcast on the Washington Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into another edition of the Locked On Huskies podcast. I'm Roman Tomashoff. That's Lars Hanson. He's site editor with Athlon Sports' Inside the Huskies. I'm the site editor with Huskies Wire. Thank you for making this your first watch or first listen of the day, as we are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. 5 Hour Energy fixes tired fast with zero sugar and a convenient portable size. It's the perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. Go to 5hourenergy.com and use promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. Go to 5hourenergy.com today. Lars, it is so great to be back. We have done so many off-season shows, which we love. We love all the off-season shows. We love coming on here every day for the Everydayers and doing everything it is that we do. We love it, but it's a little extra special when it's game week, isn't it? That's what it's all about. We got a really great show for all the Everydayers who, maybe you join with us throughout the offseason. You don't know what the game week format is like here on our Friday shows. We've got a format. At the end of the show, we're going to do our bold predictions and Lars' score prediction, a Locked On Huskies tradition. We're going to get into the defensive keys against Weber State, but we always start on the offensive side of the ball. Lars, what is your number one key to a Washington victory over Weber State?
It's a rinse and repeat of what I said on Thursday's show. Run the ball, establish the run. That's really all that, because everything comes into tow after that. Will is going to have a lot easier time passing the ball. Receivers will have a lot easier time getting open. But everything starts, and this is why Jonah Coleman was, when Jedd Fisch made the move and Scotty Graham followed him, Jonah Coleman was on that flight. I actually don't know this to be true, but Jonah Coleman was on that flight coming, right after, like the 7 p.m. flight leaves to Tucson. Jonah was on the 10 p.m. flight. It was right there. And so that's why everything goes through Jonah. And that doesn't mean Washington is going to be a running offense so that you're going to, have 3 yards, 3 yards, 3 yards, and then maybe Will does a check down for 1. No, you're going to have a significant amount of passes. But everything starts with establishing the run, get the offensive line some confidence, and really just kind of get the ball rolling, for lack of a better term, because that's really, as Jedd Fisch said on Monday, it's kind of prove that we can actually play, prove that we can play together. Well, what's the best way of doing that? Run the ball, get 3 first downs in a row on the ground, and then let Will start to cook, and then combine it all together. And you're talking about an easy game at the end of the day.
So I really agree with where you're going there, because that's one of the big things I have here, where it's similar, but it's the biggest question about the team. It's controlling the trenches, where this is a really good test for Washington. Where I was talking to Jake Butt the other day from the Big Ten Network, who's calling the game. And one of the things that we discussed was that this is a Weber State front that, as Jake told me, has a couple of guys that can go FBS if they wanted to, but he just said they all decided to come back, stay at Weber State. And it's a really experienced front. They've got a lot of production, just a lot of games of college football under their belt, which is something that a lot of Washington's offensive linemen can say, but they don't have that together. So that's one of the biggest things I'm going to be watching, is in every aspect of the game, how does that look? Does it look together on the run blocking? Does it look together on the pass blocking? Where, we got a question as, part of our Locked On Huskies Insider program. Insider Zach gave us a really great question the other day, and he asked us, what does it look like when you guys are watching the game up in the booth? What are some of the things that you're watching for in terms of that you deem successful? And one of the things that we said was it's the togetherness, it's the cohesiveness. Are the timing routes in sync? Is the offensive line blocking? Are there missed assignments or guys executing what they're supposed to be doing on any given play? Where obviously we don't have a playbook. We don't know exactly what those things are supposed to be, but we can get a pretty good idea of it when there's, one person running free and there's somebody standing with their back to the play, where it's, oh yeah, that guy missed his assignment. Where those are some of the things we're going to be looking for. And where does that all start? Everywhere, but especially in the Big Ten, in the trenches.
I will just say, Jedd did give me the script for Saturday, so we do have.
You have this. Okay, thanks for sharing.
No, because it's a great question, because but it does feed into the script of how does Jedd want to set up the offense? How does everything run through? And yeah, that's why Brendan Carroll is your offensive coordinator, because everything starts in the trenches. Jedd's just a play caller. but Brennan kind of with the cohesiveness of the staff, and it's one thing Vinny Sinceri said for the defense, but it applies equally on offense: alignment, assignment, execution, and communication. That's the 4 pillars that you're looking for. Really, it applies on offense, where the communication between Will and the rest of the receivers, Will and the running backs, Will and the offensive line. And that's why when we talk about why Will ultimately won the job, D'Angelo winning the center job, Enoch winning the right tackle job, it's experience. These guys all on a team of not a lot of familiarity and experience, any experience is good experience. And so that's kind of one of the other things kind of to carry on from your point. How does that offensive line, how does the cohesion work together? Kind of like what you said, where how is it clunky? How many procedural penalties do we have? Because that's one thing we really did not see a lot of in fall camp or even in the mock game. There was, I think, 2 or 3 in the mock game, and I think 1 or 2 in the first scrimmage. So for the most part, it's looked clean. And D'Angelo, after those first couple of days, the center snap exchange hasn't been an issue. So to me, it's just, can you play a clean game? Can you do what you're supposed to do? You know, we don't expect Washington to hang 65, 70. And especially, as you mentioned, Weber State having a good front 7 and especially a good front 4, it's a good test, but it's a test you should absolutely win. D'Angelo's played against those guys. Enoch played against guys that are better. And so when you start to look at everything coming together, how much does Will Rogers experience? This is another offensive key to kind of carry it on. How much does Will Rogers experience, and him and D'Angelo especially, end up showing out? What does that look like? Because we saw it in fall camp, how clean it looked. Now, again, the defense is probably better than what they're going to be facing on Saturday. But does that carry over into the season? Because here's the thing. If for some reason the offense struggles, there's some procedural penalties, whatever. Again, the lights aren't going to be too bright for Will or D'Angelo or guys like that who have 40-plus starts. But if it doesn't come together, then the door opens for a guy like Damon to say, hey, you know what? It's 14-10 at halftime, Damon. See what you got. Because clearly whatever we got right now ain't working. Neither of us expect that. But in order to prevent that from happening, you need to have clean communication. And I think that's why Will won the job, as Jedd said. And I'm just curious, how is that going to look? Because if Washington is able to get up 21, 28, 32, 35 in the first half, I'm not saying that's the bar what I'm setting for, but I'm saying if you can get to that, the defense should certainly do enough to put them away. And then you're able to kind of just lay back and start to focus on week 2, get the young guys some reps. But that all starts with Will and those experienced guys laying the foundation early on in those first 3 or 4 drives.
Lars, I'm really disappointed in both of us. We're now 7 minutes and 52 seconds into this recording, and we have not yet said the name Denzel Boston. Where part of me is disappointed because I'm so excited to watch him get his first career start, see what that's going to look like. But at the same point, I'm proud of us for going with other things and talking about some other keys. But I think one of the biggest ones is getting Denzel Boston in rhythm. This is his first career start. And you and I and everyone else in the media, we have spent a lot of time hyping up Denzel Boston because he earned it. We are not just pumping him up. We have seen him make spectacular catches day in and day out throughout spring camp, throughout fall camp, and now he's getting his first career start. And I think one of the biggest things is it's not his first game action. We know that. He played as a true freshman. He played last year as a redshirt freshman. But in his first start, in his first extended experience, what's that going to look like? And I think I wouldn't be surprised, bold prediction right now, first pass that Will Rogers throws is going to be a completion to Denzel Boston. I'm saying that right now. Let's see if it comes true. But I think that's one thing that I'm really going to be watching is what does Denzel look like in his first extended action? I think that if he, turns into the player that we think he could, it changes a lot about this offense. It changes a lot about, the national outlook on this team and just what Washington can be going forward. And that's one thing that I'm really, really excited about. And Lars, with that being said, let's move over to the defensive side of the ball. Right after message from our friends over at Factor. I love Factor. You can fuel up with its no prep, no mess meals. You can meet your wellness goals thanks to the menu of chef-crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart, my personal favorite, Protein Plus, and Keto. Factor's fresh and never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, you'll always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. Make today the kickstart you need for a new healthy routine. What are you waiting for? With 35 different meals each week and more than 60 add-ons to choose from every week, you'll always have new flavors to explore. You can crush your wellness goals with dietitian-approved meals and ingredients that you can trust. You can make your day delicious from breakfast to dessert. Stay fueled with easy, nutritious options, and you can treat yourself to restaurant-quality meals that feature premium ingredients like filet mignon, shrimp, and blackened salmon. You can head to factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 and use code LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code LockedOnCollege50 at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. And we've also got a message from our good friends over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. All the parts you need at the prices you want. It's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Lars, when you look at the defense, what's the one thing you're watching for against Weber State?
Ooh, I mean, dealer's choice, but I guess we'll start up front. Keep the tradition going, because to me, I want to see how much rotation. And it's one thing Steve Belichick acknowledged, kind of not backhandedly, but kind of just, went through it pretty quickly. But he said, we want to keep those guys fresh. We want to be rotating guys in there. How much rotation do we want to see, and how much rotation will we end up seeing, particularly the edge? Because I think that's the one to me where, when you look at what Washington has at the edge position, we go down the list of about 8 guys. How many of those guys, some of them not even on the depth chart, will end up playing? Because to me, I think it's going to be, obviously, Steve Belichick is not going to reveal his whole hand, certainly against Weber State. Let's just be real about that. But there is enough that I think kind of similar to the first scrimmage, where they didn't show as much in the mock game. But I think that first scrimmage, you could kind of see, okay, look, we're throwing 3 or 4 different lines out there, 3 or 4 different looks out there. I would probably say closer to 2 or 3. I don't think he wants to get closer to 4, 5, and 6. But there's enough things that, because again, the whole point of this, throw them a couple of different looks, counter the counter and counter the counter. And at that point, you should be up 35-10, whatever you want to call it. And at that point, the game's in hand, and you just kind of got to keep doing what you've been doing. You don't have to show anything new. But it's still just a matter of how is that rotation going to look like? Because obviously we know what Zach Durfee can do. We know what Isaiah Ward's capable of doing. The guys behind them is really what I want to see. How much does Boy end up playing inside versus outside? I kind of want to I want to see how deep they end up getting into the rotation, because as you get into the Big Ten, there will be rotation, but probably not as much as you're going to see against some of these earlier teams. So I'm going to be curious what and how, kind of almost similar to the quarterbacks were. When do those guys end up getting in, and who are they with?
Sure. So I have a very similar question, but about the safeties. As the readers know, we talked a lot about the corners on yesterday's show. But when I look at the safety room, I have a lot of very similar questions where, as we know on the depth chart, it's that dreaded or is in there between McEllisteen and Cameron Broussard. I'm leaning towards Cameron Broussard getting a start right now, where I love what McEllisteen can do as a rangy, over-the-top kind of guy. But I think Cameron Broussard can thrive there as well. And I think Cam brings a little more to the table in terms of what he can do in run support and in some of the different places that we've seen him line up over the course of fall practice. So that's one thing I'm watching, where I think Kamren Fabiculanan is going to play a lot. I think, honestly, all 4 of these top guys are going to play a decent amount when we factor Justin Harrington into that equation as well. So when I just kind of look up and down this roster and I look at this position in particular, Lars, we know what we've seen over the last month of fall camp. We've seen a lot of versatility, a lot of rotation, a lot of usage. We've seen 3 safeties on the field, a decent amount. So when I look at this group, I just want to see what that looks like, where who's going to be doing what, because that was one of the interesting things, in my opinion, about the Steve Belichick defense was everyone was doing everything. And that's a good thing. That's what you want. You want to see all that. You want to make sure that everybody has, the versatility and the ability to do any position, or just to do any role that they're asked to fill on the field. And that's what I feel that all these safeties can do from whatever position they're lined up in. So I don't know, man. I can't give any hard predictions on like, yeah, we're going to see this guy take this many snaps here. This guy's going to take that many snaps there. But I just think it's all going to work really, really well in terms of what this overall defense can be.
Exactly. And I think it's about situational kind of football. And that's what we saw a lot of in fall camp, where certain guys would come in certain packages and certain guys would come in at certain points in the field, because I think the staff is aware. Look, like, obviously, I think if you would pick one of the two, you're probably picking Cameron Broussard. Just if you had to pick one safety to roll with next to Cam Fab, probably you're picking Cam Broussard. But
yeah,
McHale can do enough, and he's shown enough in his time at Washington to kind of be that kind of hidden gem over the middle of the field, if you will, for lack of a better term. And so it's Steve Belichick and Vinny Sinceri saying, look, we got two experienced guys who can play some football. We like one potentially better, but that doesn't mean we don't like one or the other. We just like them in certain situations, which kind of feeds into your point of, okay, how does it end up looking? Do we see two? Do we see three? God forbid, do we see four safeties? I don't think we will, but, again, I wouldn't put anything past Steve Belichick. Now, again, this weekend, you're probably keeping it pretty basic because you're just – and I think it's kind of the aura that Steve Belichick showed at his press conference on Monday, which was, yeah, we know how good they are. We know they got some the quarterback. The way Belichick said it was so perfect. He's like, obviously, everything starts with the quarterback. They got a quarterback. They got a running back. They got some skill positions. They got an offensive line. It's like, yes, they have a football team, Steve. They do have a football team. But,
right.
And obviously, again, what is he going to say? But I think his emphasis was it's about what we do. And I know part of that is coach speak. I'm not saying this is revolutionary what Steve said, but it does kind of speak to his whole point of what he's done throughout fall camp. It's, look, the offense can throw us whatever looks we want. We just need to go against a good offense so we can test ourselves. But we're going to throw the offense a lot more looks than they've shown us. And I think fair to say that's what was the case in fall camp. And so for me, it's which looks does Steve feel like he wants to flex? Which ones does he want to try out? I mean, there could be a couple looks that he tries out 2 or 3 times and then they stick to the base defense because, again, this is an opponent where the talent level, no disrespect, you still have to play the game. We saw the Montana game. We've seen Northern Arizona beat Arizona, in 21, I believe. And so it's not out of the realm that you can have a lower level team win. But when you look at the talent, you look at the scheme, everything is made for Washington to have a solid defensive outing. It's just a question of how much does Belichick want to show. And really, even though we both expressed it's a 4-2-5, if you really, really want to pin us down, how much do they end up staying in that base show? How much success can you have in that base show? Because that will tell you where the confidence and where the overall quality is on defense. Because if they don't have to throw different looks, save it for Big Ten play. Because you really shouldn't have to throw those exotic looks, for lack of a better word, in non-conference play, and especially against Weber State.
I think the best term to use for what we're going to see defensively is a feeling out process, where you're right. And it's weird because the entire time you're saying that, like the cogs in my head are turning, and I'm thinking, well, they could do this, or they could also do that. They could do this. And none of it really makes sense. And I don't mean that in terms of, it's not going to work or this or that. But when I say that, I mean, there's no one plan that I feel works best where, obviously they don't want to put everything on film in week 1. But at the same point, you want to make sure that you're comfortable with the guys that you have out there, where, of course, that's what spring camp's for. That's what fall camp is for. But I think that's one of the unique things about this team, where a lot of the guys that are going to be playing big roles did come in after the fall camp window or after the spring camp window. So they were only here for about a month of actual install during fall camp, where, they can read the playbook, but it's a little different once you get out there. And then it's a little different once again when you're doing it against the team. So that's why I want to start with the safeties, because I think that with all the veteran guys that they have back there, that's going to be a really important thing to make sure that everybody else in front of them, especially, it's veterans at all 3 position groups, but I feel the safety has a fair amount of experience, and obviously linebacker, you're going to rely on the 2 captains there in Carson Bruener and Alfonso Tupatala. But the more that I just look at this defense as a whole, I don't have questions about if the scheme is going to work. We know the scheme is going to work, but the question is, what are you going to show? How much of that are you going to show right away? And what's it going to look like?
Yeah, and shout out to us. You mentioned it in the first segment with Denzel. We went through an entire 10-minute segment without talking about Carson Bruener being a key to the game, which again is no disrespect to Carson, but it speaks to the point because for Carson to have the best success at linebacker with him and Zoe, you need to have a back end that can allow you to play free, allow you to kind of do a number of different things, whether it's Carson blitzing, Carson dropping back in coverage. And so in a way, the defense all kind of comes together, and that's really the question. We haven't truly seen it. And so what does that end up looking like? To your point, we know there's probably 5 or 6 different ways they can splice it, but we haven't seen it when it actually matters. And so we finally, Roman, on Saturday get to see what it looks like, which means I know what's coming next.
Finally, we get to get into some of our bold predictions, a lockdown Huskies tradition. Lars, let's get to it. Right after a message from our friends over at 5 Hour Energy, because 5 Hour Energy is awesome. You can do it with so many things. One of the best things that you can do with it is tackling a to-do list, because 5 Hour Energy fixes tired fast. Whether you have a long list of things to do for work or a list of DIY projects to tackle at home, taking a 5 Hour Energy shot so you can check everything off your list. If you're like me, you always have a large list of projects for the home, and when you get your supplies for the project, don't forget the most essential one, which is a 5 Hour Energy shot. Because 5 Hour Energy is the brand that hardworking people like you have trusted for over 20 years to give them the alert, energized feeling they need to get through a busy, hectic day. You always know where to find 5 Hour Energy shots right at the cash register at nearly every convenience, drug, and grocery store nationwide. You can stock up on money-saving multi-packs to make sure you never run out of delicious, energizing 5 Hour Energy shots. If you go to 5hourenergy.com, that is the number 5hourenergy.com, and get some 5 Hour Energy product today. You can use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is also not good on subscription orders. Go to 5hourenergy.com today. Lars, it's time for a drum roll here. I know that just made my camera go all wonky here, but it's time for some bold predictions. I'm going to give you the honors to start us off because you're rubbing your hands like a supervillain over there.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many ways that I could go about this. I'm going to say Adam Mohammed has 85 yards rushing and at least 1 touchdown. Don't ask me for how many carries. Don't ask me for how many carries. But I just think because again, we saw it throughout fall camp. He had some 40 yarders. He had some 50 yarders.
Yeah,
you're telling me against Weber State that boy ain't got a regular one for like 35 plus at least? He's going to.
You stole one of mine, man. I had something very, very similar written down. Doesn't matter anymore. I'm crossing off my list. My biggest one is I'm going to start on the defensive side here. I shout out to our guy Spencer McLaughlin over at Locked On College Football. I went on his show the other day and touted Washington's defense some more. He made it into a little clip and a little YouTube short, and I'm going to continue to do so right here. Give me 3 turnovers in this opening game against Weber State. It could come in any shape or form. It could be picks, fumbles, anything. I want to see 3. I think we're going to see 3. I think this scheme, as vanilla as it might be in week 1, is still going to be a lot for most programs really to adjust to, and what Steve Belichick is going to be able to do in terms of disguises, in terms of some of these other things. So let's get a little bold in there. And I'm going to steal something from you, Lars, where one of those 3 turnovers is going to be a Jordan Shaw interception.
Proud of you. That makes me just leave that one because when you said that, I was like, well, if you don't specifically mention Shaw, I might say Jordan Shaw just all by himself.
No, you stole one of mine. I had to take one of yours.
And that's fair. So I'm gonna intentionally leave you one of your guys on offense, another one, because I know you
thank you.
Earlier in the show, there's an agenda. So if you don't mind, I'll take Will Rogers. That way you'll pick up the receiving end of that one. No pun intended, but I'm kind of leading you into a potential pick of your own. But with that being said, give me Will Rogers over 300 yards. I want to say probably 350, 360. I want to say 4 touchdowns because it should be bold.
I like this.
But give me 3 touchdowns. Maybe a 4th, but I think there might be somebody else. And I don't want to make this bold prediction, but there might be another passing touchdown from somebody else.
Oh, I wonder who that might be. Would it be Jonah Coleman? Just throwing a name out there. No, I like where you're going there. I'm going to play off of yours here, where Denzel Boston in his first career start, give me 120 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns, where this is a guy who we've seen him make so many different plays in all areas of the field. I think that he's going to have multiple 30+ yard receptions where he's shown that's something he's been able to do. He's got the speed to run by guys. And I think once he gets down in the red zone, Lars, we've got to stick to our prediction that he's going to lead the Big Ten in touchdowns, as all the Everydayers know from a show a couple of weeks ago. So why not start with 2 in his first game?
Exactly, and I'm glad you caught that, pun intended, that I was trying to lead you into. You did that very well.
All right.
Are you getting tired of my puns at this point? Because I got a whole
I am, but I'm not. They're wonderful, but terrible.
I got a whole. Oh, they're absolutely terrible. But one thing that's absolutely not terrible is Washington's pass rush. Nice. Give me 4 sacks. Look at that. That's why we get paid the big bucks. It's a professional segue right there. Give me 4 sacks for Washington's defense as a team. And I was debating, do I want to give, a specific player, Durfee, 2? I think, again, at the end of the day, it's kind of what we saw in fall camp, where who did you give a sack to? Who did I give a sack to? Who was closest? We're just going to go with the team 4 sack number, 4.5. But I will say, if I put the over-under at 4.5, I wouldn't be surprised if it's slightly over. But I'm going to set the over-under at 4.5 and give me 4. But I would not be surprised if it's 1 more.
I respect that. I've got a couple here, and I don't know which way I want to go with this. So I'm going to go to a tradition from the 2023 season. That's a tackle leader. Give me Carson Bruener. I'm going to set this number pretty high, where I think he's going to fly around. I really do think this scheme plays really, really well just into everything it is that he's going to do. I'm going to give him 12 plus total tackles. That's solo plus assisted. Give me 12 tackles for Carson Bruener inside Husky Stadium to kick off his senior season. Yeah, let's do it.
And that was also why I kind of owed you back for 1 extra, so I left you with the Carson one, because I know that's your tried and true tradition. And exactly, it's why we didn't talk about Carson in the second segment, because we know what we're getting from Carson. We know in a way what we're also getting from Zoe. But the heart, and in the way that Jonah Coleman is the heartbeat of the offense, Carson Bruener is the heart of the defense. That does not slight Sebastian Valdez. That doesn't slight Ephesians Prysock, who we said was the most important player on defense. There's 2 different things here: important versus heartbeat. Will Rogers is important. Jonah Coleman's the heartbeat. See where I'm going, people? So with that all being said, do I want to go 1 more, or do we want to get into the score prediction?
Oh, you got to get 1 more in here. I got 1 more.
Okay, so and that's too cheap, because I was gonna do a Grady Gross one, but I'll save that. I'm gonna save that one for week 3. Give me a good one. Give me Audric Harris 3 catches.
Ooh, okay.
I know it doesn't. I know it doesn't sound bold in terms of 3. True freshman. You got a lot of receivers in that room. I'm not gonna say he's got a touchdown, because again, I think that's kind of going way too far. I mean, again, Audric absolutely could find the end zone. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying I 3 catches, maybe 4 catches. I can see it. I
like that a lot. You're making me change my last one here, where I had something written down. Now that one is lost into the ether. We don't know what it would have said, because this next one, I almost want to make it. No, I'm not going to make it a lock, but I love I love my own thinking here. I'm just going to prop myself up like that. Lars, you didn't want to pick anybody to have a sack. I'm going to. Give me Kamori House racking up a sack in his first career game. I'm so excited for the way that this defense is going to utilize him. This coaching staff has talked at length about how excited they are to have him in here. And the way we've seen him utilized throughout the spring, throughout the fall, he's grown not only physically, but mentally as well. And he knows this defense. He's done a really, really good job at getting himself integrated into it. And the more I watch him, the more I'm excited about him. And I think this coaching staff is as well. I think he's going to play a lot more than some people think. And I think he's going to rack up a sack in his first career game inside Husky Stadium.
I like that. I mean, certainly Kamori, he's going to be the guy in the fourth quarter flying around. Like, that's the lockdown bet you can make. He's going to be the guy that's
might
probably
be sooner than that.
I'm just kind of I'm using the fourth quarter as a crutch for this week one,
Fair.
just to safe assessment until we see it after this weekend. The Eastern Michigan game is different. All right, now we're doing the score prediction.
I'm doing it like this so I don't mess up my camera here.
Good on you. So, spoiler, shocker, revolutionary. I have Washington winning the game. I know that probably will surprise. Exactly. I know. I stayed up all night going back and forth about this one because I truly thought but I do think Weber State is a very good opponent. I do think there will be some challenges, especially with Washington being such a brand new team playing in there for the first time, which is why I think the first half is so important. Give me Washington 38, Weber State 13. I wanted to give Weber State a little bit more, but that gives you 3 scoring drives if you're Weber State, which that's respectable. And I could, if you play into 17, I don't see Weber State going above 21, but Washington in reality, which again will line up, and you'll see fans will hear, well, if it's 35. Means probably DeMond is getting into the fourth. Exactly. I think all of this will come to fruition in the way, but I do think Weber State would be a good test. And I'm curious to see kind of how Washington comes out. Because if Washington comes out and doesn't score in their first 2 drives, I got questions.
I agree with you there as well, Lars. And with that being said, thank you so much for being here. Thank you to all the everydayers tuning in. We really do appreciate all your support, and thank you for making Locked On Huskies your first listen of the day. Now go check out the Locked On College Football podcast from NIL deals, never-ending conference realignment rumors. Our good friend Spencer McLaughlin gets you ready for an exciting season on the gridiron. You can find the link to Locked On College Football in the description, so you don't need to search. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It's so good to be back in football season. And Lars, we got so much more fun stuff coming out throughout the year. And with some of that, we're going to be dropping it first for our Locked On Huskies insiders. The link to that is down in the description below. Get a free 2-week trial there. And after that, it's $4.99 a month. We got so much more fun stuff over there, like the ability to chat with us one-on-one, access to exclusive Q&As where we're sharing everything that we know about the team, recruiting, all that sort of stuff, dropping a ton of rumors, recruiting stuff, news, all that goes over there to our insiders first, sometimes days in advance, sometimes days before it gets announced. Who knows what I might be referring to there. So if you want to go check that out, again, free 2-week trial. After that, it's $4.99 a month. We're working really, really hard to make sure that it's absolutely worth that because we really do appreciate all your support. And with that being said, thank you so much for being here, and make sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcast, whether that's YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music. We're there. We're everywhere, updating the channel with new content every single day. So make sure you click that like button, click that little bell so you never miss when we post a new video. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, make sure to drop them right down below in the comment section. And if you're audio only, please leave us a 5-star review, as it does help us out a lot. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will talk to you on Monday.